Hello, welcome back to my channel. My name is Katie. So today's video is going to be my January-February updated makeup review. So basically there were 3 videos that all of these products I'm going to talk about were from. So there was my January's first impressions, my February's first impressions, and my felt face testing Catrice makeup. So I'll put some cards up somewhere on the screen. Maybe, we'll see. I did also film a testing Pop Beauty video right at the end of February. So technically I should have included that in this, but because my order was a bit late and I got it right at the end of February, I thought I'm not really going to have enough time to play around with all of those products as well as the ones I already have. So I'll just throw those into my March recap. So my March makeup review will be my next one. So I've got all of the products listed here. And there's quite a lot. There's a lot of product, more than my November, December I think, but I have been using them almost exclusively, basically exclusively, so I have got some further thoughts on them which we'll go through today. So I did just do a get ready with me that featured the makeup that I'm going to be reviewing today. Obviously not all of it, I just picked a handful of products for that video, so I have talked a little bit about some of my thoughts on these, but we'll go in full detail today. So there was 3 primers I tried, the Gosh Velvet Touch Foundation Primer, the Revlon Rose Glow Hydrating and Illuminating Primer, and then the e.l.f. Natural Glow Lotion. So I bought the e.l.f. one, I wanted to try that, but these 2 I got as freebies with my order, so I didn't actually pay anything for them, they just came free when I bought what I wanted from Superdrug. So I'll talk about the e.l.f. one first because I did actually want this. I really like this. I think this does exactly what I wanted it to do. It is basically what it says on the tin. It is a glow lotion. I think you can use it for your body as well, but I use it on my face just under foundation. It just gives you a really nice like sheen, like a bit of illumination, sort of highlighty effect, but it's subtle. You don't put it on and look like super oily and super glittery and just like it's too much. I literally just realised I had some white splodge on my forehead. Yeah, it's got illumination, but it's subtle, it's not too much. I recently tried one from Flower Beauty that I put it on and it just made me look like an oil slick, and this doesn't do that. It does not make you look like an oil slick, but at the same time it's noticeable. It doesn't do nothing or anything. So for me this is just like a perfect sort of product. It's very similar to the Barry M Glowmance primer. Similar sort of effect to that one, and I really like that one. One of my favourite primers. I think it's really just going to depend on what you want from a primer. Do you want something that's going to give you longevity? Do you want something that's going to make your skin glow? Do you want something that's just going to hydrate your skin? Do you want something that's going to minimise your pores? Obviously we all have different things that we want, but this is just for people that want subtle sort of illumination under foundation, and it's really great in terms of that. The colour is sort of like a kind of butterscotch colour, but it's sort of like, it doesn't really have like a strong colour pigment. I can't 100% guarantee it, but I feel like this would work on all skin tones because it just sort of blends out into your skin tone. It doesn't have like a sort of strong colour pigment behind it, it's more just like a sheen, a shine, a bit of illumination. So I feel like this could work on all skin tones. So the Revlon Rose Glow one, I did use that in the get ready with me. I don't dislike it, but I don't love it. Like, I wouldn't have picked it out myself. As I said, I got it for free. I wouldn't have chosen it. It's more of a skincare sort of primer. I feel it does feel very hydrating and like nourishing on the skin, so I do like that aspect of it. I wouldn't say it's really like highlighting or illuminating, to be honest. To me it just gives like a very sort of subtle sort of like dew like shine to the skin, but nothing overpowering, which I mean I quite like that. I don't mind that, but I do prefer it when it has a bit of like illumination, like a highlighty sort of effect to it. I also don't really like the little balls in this. First of all, I feel like they clog up the pump, so sometimes you'll be like squirting it out and it will just seem like it gets blocked, and like I'm pretty sure it's the balls because you can like literally just see the balls in there, and like I don't know, I just feel like the balls are just a bit unnecessary. Like I just feel like I don't really get the point of them. They can sometimes just stay on your face, kind of go everywhere, all over your hands. Yeah, I don't hate it or anything, but for me I just don't really rate it that highly. But I think if you want something that's just a little bit skincare, you're just going to hydrate your skin before foundation, and it works fine for that. Next one, the Gosh Velvet Touch Foundation Primer. So originally I did actually want to buy the apricot version of this. I'm pretty sure that they're like the same product, but it's just a different colour. I did want to buy the apricot one, but then I got this free in my order, so I was like, oh well, there's not really any point in buying the apricot one now. I might as well just use this. It has a really like soft velvety texture like you'd expect from something that's kind of like a pore blurring sort of primer. However, I just have this issue with all pore blurring primers though, and that I just don't really feel like they do anything for my pores personally. I just think my pores are too big for these primers to really do anything for them, to be honest. It just feels incredibly soft, incredibly smooth on the face. I did try and test like the wear, like if it improved it at all. I put it on like one half of my face and then not on the other, and I didn't notice anything when I like came back at the end of the day that looked different on either side, so I don't really feel like it does anything for wear. Like I do think it like makes your foundation go on a little bit smoother, but other than that I just don't feel like it really does an awful lot. Like it feels nice, it's a nice texture, but I just don't feel like it did anything miraculous for my pores, to be honest. So I mean, it's just a bit meh for me really. So I'm going to talk about foundations now, and I'm going to try and do this in the order that I filmed the wear test, so that it will make a bit sense when I'm editing those in. So the one that I tried in February was the Estee Lauder Double Wear Stay in Place Makeup. I got it in the shade 0M1 Alabaster. I'm pretty sure this is the lighter shade. It is a little bit too pale for me. What I tend to do with it is I put like a tiny bit of this LA Girl Pro Color mixing pigment, the yellow one. I tend to do is just put a little bit of this, like you only really need a really small amount, and mix it in with this because it makes it a little bit more yellowy, and it obviously darkens it a tiny bit. I can get a pretty decent colour when I do it that way. I have got it on today and I do feel like the colour match is not too bad. So this foundation, it's obviously very hyped up. A lot of people love this, and I feel like every time a foundation or any makeup product gets hyped up, I feel like you're always just going to be a bit underwhelmed when you try it, unless it is just an extraordinary product, which, I mean, I have had products that have been hyped up and I've tried them and I have been really impressed with them, but I do feel like generally when something's really hyped up, I feel like you're always going to be underwhelmed. Like even if it's still good, you're still just going to be a bit like, why is this as hyped as much as it is? And that's kind of how I feel about this. Like, I like it quite a lot, I will say. I've got it on my face today. I do really like it. There's not really much I can fault it on, to be honest. I think maybe I was expecting it to be a little bit more fold coverage than it is. To me, it's like a high, medium, buildable to a low fold coverage. But I don't put it on and feel like it covers absolutely everything. Like, I could get it to if I was to sit and build it, definitely. But I think it looks nice on the skin. I don't think it looks lightweight, but then I don't think it looks super duper heavy and cakey. It's just sort of somewhere in the middle. It could look a bit more natural, but then I feel like when something's got, you know, like a high medium to full coverage, it's probably not going to look natural anyway. I feel like that's just to be expected. I think it's got a nice finish. I'd say it's probably more of a semi-matte sort of finish. To me, it doesn't look super oily, it doesn't look super dry. It's just kind of, it's a nice balance. I think a lot of people would get along with it for that reason, because it is a kind of a balance between not being too matte and drying, not being overly oily. I do like the finish in that sense. Yeah, I put it on. I don't feel like it emphasizes my pores a lot. I feel like it just looks flattering on the skin. So with all of my wear tests, I generally like to film my wear tests when I'm at work, because I don't know, I just feel like that's a bit more realistic in day-to-day life to do a wear test when you go to work and stuff. But my shop's closed. But I always put things off to the last minute, so I didn't film my wear tests until it was too late and my shop closed, and I'm now at home self-isolating. So I had to basically film these at home. So I did manage to get them. I did manage to keep them on my face for 8 hours. So I did get decent wear tests with them, but again, I would have preferred to have done it at work. But I had them on my face for 8 hours, so I'll insert the clip of the Estee Lauder how that one wore. I'm having to do all these wear tests just on days where I'm at home, which I don't like doing because I like to chill out when I'm at home and touch my face, but I've had to try it very, very, very hard to suppress touching my face today, and I did an okay job, I think. So obviously I have just been at home. I have been like cleaning and stuff, and I made my bed, and anyone that has a double bed knows that making your bed is like a full body workout. So I mean, I've not just been completely sitting on my arse all day. Anyway, so we've got the Estee Lauder on. It's been on for 8 hours now. That's the longest I could do because I really need to take this makeup off now. So if you look at my forehead, I think that's pretty good. I feel like there's not a lot of breakage. It maybe looks like a tiny bit texturized, and I feel like maybe it's like a little bit of like, I don't know if it's oil, but I don't know, like it's a little bit shiny, which, I mean, it's not, I mean, it's more of a matte foundation, so I'm not sure why it looks shiny, but I just noticed it looks a tiny bit shiny. I think that there's really not a lot of breakage up there. It doesn't look absolutely like smooth, perfect, flawless, but I think overall that has held up pretty well on my forehead. It looks pretty good, like on these bits of my cheeks. Looks pretty good. Even going quite far in. Normally like my pores are quite bad because I'm always like touching my nose, but to be fair I've tried my best not to touch my nose, but it happens. There's a little bit of texture on my chin. It literally had sunk into that line right at the beginning of when I applied it, so it's not like a wear thing. But the rest of my chin, it's not too bad. It's like a bit of texture, but it's really not broken down too bad. I do think overall this is a pretty good wearing foundation based on this wear test today. I've not got a lot to fault it on. Yeah, I think this is a really good long wearing foundation in my opinion. It isn't like absolutely perfect at the end of the day, but it's close. It's pretty damn close to being perfect. I wouldn't quite put it up there with my favourites, which is like the L'Oreal Infallible and the MAC Studio Fix and the W7 photo shoot. They're like my ultimate wearing ones. I'd put this at just a tiny bit below those, so it's still a pretty good wearing foundation. So yeah, the wear, pretty good with this one. I think it does last pretty well. We'll give it a thumbs up in that department. Overall, I do actually really like this foundation. I think it's good. I'm happy it's in my collection. I do like it, but maybe I was just expecting a little bit more just because of how hyped it was, but really, there's not much I can fault it on. I think it's a pretty good foundation. Very expensive though. So next I'll talk about the Catrice HD Liquid Coverage Foundation. Mine is in the shade 002 Porcelain Beige, which, see I know like in the US and like I think some other European countries, I think they have more shades, but I got it from a website called Just My Look in the UK, and they only had like about 8 or so shades on there, and this was the lightest one that was available, so I don't know if they actually have lighter shades, but this was just really orangey on me. Like I could get it to work with white mixer because it's a very thin sort of watery formula, and all of my white mixers are quite thick. It can be just difficult to get it right, but you can. Yeah, I don't like the colour, it's just very orangey, but yeah, I can get it to work with white mixer, obviously. I think it's a decent foundation. Again, I do feel like I've had a lot of YouTubers hype this up a lot, and it just sort of underwhelmed me compared to how people talk about it, but I think it's decent. It's a little bit oilier than what, I would say it is more semi-matte, but I do feel like it's a bit more oily than it is matte, so I would rather it be more semi-matte slash matte, personally. I don't feel like it like super like, I don't think it's like super perfect on my texture, but I don't think it's terrible on my texture either. I think the Estee Lauder Estee Lauder has a slightly nicer finish than this, but I don't think this has a bad finish. I just feel like it could look a little bit more flattering on the skin. Coverage is like pretty decent. I would say it's like a medium, buildable to high medium. It's fine, it suits my preferences perfectly well. And again, I did do a wear test, which I will insert in a second. Didn't think it wore quite as well as the Estee Lauder one, but overall pretty good. I will just put that clip in now. Okay, so we're now wear testing the Catrice foundation. I have had this on for 8 hours. So let's just get a look at it. So forehead, I feel like I just look oily, which is weird because I don't have oily skin. I don't think this looks quite as good as the Estee Lauder one that I did yesterday. It's just like, I don't know, it looks pretty good. Like it's not really broken down too badly or anything. Like it's held up like pretty well. But I feel like I can see it kind of going in these little lines I have between my forehead, and it just looks a bit textury, a little bit sort of bumpy, and just kind of a bit shiny as well, which is weird because I don't have particularly oily skin. The outer parts of my face look pretty decent, as they always do. Getting a bit of breakage on my chin, nothing terrible. Yeah, I can see it. It's not perfect on my chin, but it's not bad. It is just starting to break a little bit and go a little bit textured, but it's not the worst. I think this wears like decently. It's not bad at all. I don't think it's quite as good as the Estee Lauder, but it's pretty good. I say that this is a good wearing foundation, but I wouldn't say it's like a great one, just a good one. So above average definitely, but not fantastic. It's only just like a little bit of texture really, a bit of shine, tiny bit of breakage on my chin, and that's really it that I have to kind of complain about. Otherwise I feel like it holds up pretty good. So overall I just like, I don't know, I think I was expecting a bit more from it. Like it's just kind of an average foundation to me. Like I'd happily wear it. I don't put it on and think that there's anything instantly wrong with how my skin looks. There's no patchiness, there's nothing like that. I don't know, there's just something a bit missing for me. I don't know what it is. I think it's just the finish. I think the finish could be a bit more flattering on my skin, but it's not bad. I would not recommend it, but I wouldn't say run out and buy it either. And I know a lot of people really like this, so I think again it may just depend on skin type for that one. And I've got the Revlon Photoready Candid foundation. Also, this one definitely grew on me because I wasn't like super impressed with it in my first impressions. The colour is a tiny bit dark and the undertones are a little bit off, so again I put a really small bit of this yellow colour mixer thing, and then I get like a little bit of white mixer, and it makes a pretty decent colour. And I feel like it is a very sort of semi matte foundation. I think it's like a tiny bit more matte than the Catrice one, only slightly though. I feel like the finish has grown on me. I wasn't sure about it the first time, but then I think mixing it maybe makes it a little bit more matte possibly, I'm not sure. Yeah, I actually quite like how it looks on the skin. I don't feel like it looks heavy or cakey. I think I'd describe the coverage as a low medium coverage. It's more than light coverage, definitely, but it's definitely not a high coverage foundation. I think I would prefer it to have a little bit more coverage personally. I feel like out of all these three foundations though, this one's probably the most sort of lightweight foundation. I actually do quite like how this looks on the skin. I wish the coverage was a little bit better. And the wear, I will insert the wear test in just a sec, but I do think out of all of these it probably wore the least well, I would say. So I'll just put that clip in now. Okay, so I've had the Revlon Photoready Candid foundation on for 8 hours now. Okay, so let's just get a look at this. I have got kind of flakes of mascara on my face, or I think it's mascara anyway, so let's just pretend they're not there. Okay, so my forehead, I feel like this looks pretty similar to how the Catrice one did yesterday. Like I can kind of see it going in these little lines that I have, like just right between my brows. I don't know if you can see them on camera because it's like subtle, but like I can notice it in person. Like it's just sort of settled into, you know, when you squint your things there, and it just looks a bit textured, a bit shiny, but it's not too much breakage. I feel like it's pretty similar to how the Catrice one wore yesterday. A little bit of breakage on my chin, a bit of texture. Yeah, not perfect there. I'm finding it very confusing how shiny I'm looking in these wear tests, because I don't normally look shiny, but just something to note, I guess. The outer parts of my face are fine. I do feel like it's kind of settled into like these little smile lines at the side of my mouth a bit. I feel like this probably wears the worst out of all of them, but like I feel like it's really not that different to the Catrice one, to be honest. Literally maybe like a tiny bit worse, but really not by that much at all. I do think this wears pretty well. It's a pretty good wearing foundation, above average I would say, but is it anything extraordinary? No, but like when I look at it, I think, yeah, that's held up pretty decently. There's not too much I can fault it on, other than just, you know, settling into a few lines, looking a bit shiny, looking a bit textured, and it has started to like sort of break down on my chin a bit. But yeah, it's really not that bad. Wears okay with this one, I feel. Overall, like, again, it's just like, it's a bit average for me. Like, it could wear a bit better, could have a bit better coverage, but I do like the finish of it. I think the finish is probably my favourite aspect of it, because I don't feel like it looks cakey, and I don't feel like it's overly oily, which is a problem I have when foundations look too oily. But then it's not drying at all in the slightest. So yeah, I think the finish is my favourite aspect of this. I think it's a decent drugstore foundation, but again, it's just not completely wowed me or anything. So I just feel like all of these foundations, my favourite would definitely be the Estee Lauder. Yeah, no bad foundations, that's for sure. Nothing was awful. Just a bit of average, and then one little bit above average foundation. When it comes to the concealers though, I feel like it's just average all around when it comes to these guys. I've got the Catrice Liquid Camouflage High Coverage Concealer. This is in, what shade are you? 001. Again, I'm pretty sure it's the lightest shade. I've got the Iconic London Seamless Concealer, and this is in Fair Nude. And then I've got the Maybelline Superstay Full Coverage Under Eye Concealer in Ivory 05. The Iconic London one I found a bit confusing because there was limited swatches online, so I couldn't tell if this shade Fair Nude was the lightest or if there was another one. I think it was called like Lightest Nude or Lightest Fair, I have no idea. But there was another one that I think could have potentially been lighter, but it was hard to tell from the swatches, so I just kind of gambled. So this might be the lightest shade, it might not, I'm not 100% sure. Yeah, like all of these are a bit average. So like before I filmed this, I did just kind of try them all out in my eye area because I wanted to just like compare the coverages. And if I'm honest, I feel like they all had basically the same level of coverage. I didn't feel like one was really better than the other in terms of coverage. They're all just kind of like high medium coverage concealers, and I generally do prefer a more full coverage concealer just because I like a sort of medium coverage foundation and then a full coverage concealer, because then I feel like overall I get the kind of coverage that I want when I do it that way. So I do kind of wish that all of these had a bit more coverage. I do think the formula of all of these though is pretty good. None of them are really dry on the skin, which is great. I feel like they're all quite hydrating in formula, so that's good, because I do hate it when a concealer's a little bit too dry. But then none of them are super oily looking either, so they don't look like an oil slick. So the finish is really good in terms of that. I just wish that all of them had a bit more coverage. That's my only issue. So the Iconic London one, yeah, the shade is a little bit off. Like the undertone's pretty good. It's a very sort of yellowy undertone, definitely. And I can use it on like the outer parts of my face perfectly fine. I have on a few occasions just used this all over my face, sort of as foundation when I've not had time to do a full face of makeup. And I do feel like when I blended it all out, it just kind of looked like it matches, to be honest. It doesn't look majorly off when I do it like that, so the colour's not too much of an issue. Yeah, I mean, it's got a nice sort of velvety sort of formula. It's quite a nice finish. Hydrating, but not too oily. It sits on the skin perfectly fine. It doesn't look heavy at all. But again, I just wish it had a bit more coverage. So I don't dislike it. And I do think it looks nice all over, used as a sort of foundation. I think it does look nice that way. Trees one I feel like has the most sort of thinner sort of formula out of all of these. I feel like the Maybelline and the Iconic one are a bit thicker, but then I do feel like it still sort of has the same sort of coverage even though it is a bit thinner. The shade is definitely lighter than the Iconic one. I feel like it just kind of matches my skin tone really. It's not really... Maybe like it's a tiny bit lighter, I don't know, it depends what foundation I'm using it with. Yeah, I can't really use it to brighten, but then at the same time I don't always want a super bright under eye, so I would still use it under the eyes. I think the colour works okay, to be honest, it's not super bad. The undertone is a bit more neutral, I would say. And nothing wrong with the finish or the formula of it, it's just I wish it had more coverage. The Maybelline one, obviously it describes itself as full coverage. It's pretty decent coverage, but it's not full coverage in my opinion. Again, the shade does work decently. And it has got quite a thick formula, but again, it's still, I still feel like these are all about the same level of coverage, to be honest. I think this one maybe has a tiny bit more coverage than the other two, but only a very like minuscule amount. The shade works decently. Again, I can't really like brighten with it, but I don't always want to do that anyway, but it just sort of matches me. Yeah, I think if I did have to pick a favourite out of these, I probably would go with the Maybelline one, but it's only slightly edging it really, but I wouldn't really repurchase any of these again after I used them up, so that's my kind of thoughts on them. They're good, but not good enough to repurchase really. Okay, so moving on to powders, I've got the Revlon Colour Stay in translucent, which I've basically used up all of, as you can see. I've got two Gosh powders, so I got the Prime and Set Primer and Mattifying Setting Powder with hyaluronic acid. This is the hydration powder. Looks like this. And then the other Gosh powder I got was the waterproof setting powder, which looks like this. I think they're both sort of newer powders that Gosh has released. And then I also bought the Catrice Nude Illusion Loose Powder Transparent Matte, and this is completely empty. I have used this all up, all on. I think I'll talk about this one first. So obviously I used it a lot, but then again I don't feel like it really has a lot of product in it, to be honest, but I did get like a lot of makeup looks with it, you know. I think this is an okay powder. I don't dislike it. It doesn't rival my favourite powders. There's no patchiness with it. It doesn't do anything weird to my foundation or anything. It sets it perfectly fine. It mattifies well. My only issue with this is that I don't feel like it ever really gave me like a flawless sort of finish. I just don't feel like it did anything magical to my skin. Like I have other powders that I feel like just look better on the skin, less cakey, a bit more lightweight, and blur out my pores a little bit more. This one I feel like it sort of does all those things like a little bit, but not a lot. Like I think it's a decent powder, like I used it all, so it can't be terrible. It doesn't really rival my favourites, but I mean, it's just like it's a passable powder. Like I'd use it, I'd be happy with how my face looked with it, but I just feel like there are other powders that I'd prefer to reach for more than this, that just blur out my pores a bit more. It just has like a little bit of a powdery sort of residue to it. Like it doesn't just sort of like mesh into your skin like seamlessly. It just sort of like, you know how you put some powders on it and it would just mesh into the products you've got underneath it, but then some powders will just almost sort of like sit on top of your base products and just look like a layer of powder as opposed to just it all sort of blending in with each other. I feel like this powder sort of does that. There's just nothing like really bad that stands out to me as wrong with this powder, but I just don't think I'd personally rebuy it, but it's not bad. So the Revlon Colour Stay one, I think this is the second or the third time that I've bought this, which would make you think I really like it. But I mean, I do like it. It's a decent powder. I don't really use pressed powders to set under my eyes anymore. I more so just use them to set like the rest of my face. And I think it worked okay for that. It was perfectly fine. So the shade is translucent. You can't get this shade in Boots or Superdrug. Like you can get it in stores at Boots, but not online for some reason. But it is on Amazon, and I actually got this one off of Feel Unique, so they have got the translucent shade. At Feel Unique, it's really good if you have got a pale skin, because I know the light shade in this powder is really orangey and too dark. At the same time, it is not actually translucent, like it's not an invisible sort of powder. It does have a bit of a tint to it, so if you had darker skin you wouldn't be able to use this. So I don't know why they would label it translucent. I feel like if something's translucent, I feel like when something's labelled translucent, you want it to be invisible. You don't want it to have a colour tint to it. So I feel like they should have just called it like fair or something. Like I don't know why they'd call it translucent. But yeah, the shade does work for pale skin, definitely. It's alright, it looks fine in skin. It does add a little bit of coverage. The finish is fine. It's not super lightweight looking, but it's okay. Again, I don't think I would rebuy it anymore. I have rebought it, but then again like my tastes and my preferences and all of these things have changed over the years, so like I don't feel like I would rebuy it again. I feel like a recurring theme here with these products is there's a lot of averageness. So these two Gosh ones, okay, the waterproof one I definitely would not recommend. I just did not like it. First of all, made my face completely orange. Like it looked horrible. Like, I mean, maybe some skin tones it will suit, but it just turns your face completely orange, so it just did not look right on my skin at all. And if something just makes me orange, I'm just not going to use it. Like I used it obviously in my first impressions, and I used it 2 times over the last weeks, but I just used it with concealer on, and I still didn't like how it looked. It still made me look sort of, it's like a sort of pinky orange it makes you look like. I do find it's a tiny bit patchy as well. It really makes your bronzer and your highlighter just not show up at all. This has got good reviews on Superdrug, so obviously some people like it, but it just really did not agree with my skin personally. And honestly, the main issue for me is the colour. So if it's just going to make me look orange, I'm just not going to want to use it. But then I just didn't really like the formula either. I just really did not get along with this one. I wouldn't recommend it, but obviously some people like it. The hydration one, so I have got this one on today, and see I've used this one quite a lot, and I feel like I have different experiences every time I use it. See today I think it actually looks quite good. Like I mean like it does like a tiny bit powdery on the skin, but I feel like overall today is the best I've got on it to look, that's for sure. I don't feel like it looks really bad today. I do feel like it does oxidize a little bit. Again, it's not the worst I found for oxidizing, but I do feel like you'll put it on and you will notice sort of like an orange tint forming on your face, obviously depending on what your skin tone is. So that's just something that really annoys me when translucent powders oxidize. Like, why can't translucent powders just be translucent? Why do they have to oxidize your makeup? Why do they have to make you white? I've had a lot of translucent powders make me white. I think across all skin tones we can universally agree that translucent powders should be translucent. They shouldn't be white. They shouldn't oxidize your makeup. They should just be invisible. So I wouldn't say I absolutely hate this powder, but it's just, it doesn't have the most flawless finish. It's not patchy. It doesn't separate my under eyes, so it's good in terms of that. I do find that my cheap products can go a bit patchy over the top of it though. At Get Ready With Me I've just uploaded, I used the Revlon bronzer that I'll mention shortly, and I did find that this goes really patchy over the top of this. It wasn't too bad today actually. Like I could see it's kind of starting to go patchy, but I think I managed to save it. And again, like my highlighter really just does not show up as well. I don't like it when your powder just interferes with the other makeup products that you're trying to use. It's okay, but I just feel like it's got more faults than it has good aspects to it. So I mean, I'm going to keep it in my collection because I don't like to just throw away things I've just got, but I don't feel like I'm going to reach for it a lot compared to the other powders that I've got in my collection. It's the sort of thing that I would use if I ran out of my other powders and it's all I had left, and I'd use it and I wouldn't be too upset about it. But in terms of like the hydration aspect of it, I don't really get that. I don't feel like it's any like less sort of powdery and drying than any other powders, to be honest. I don't feel like it does anything in terms of hydration, really. If anything, I just feel like it's quite powdery and quite cakey sort of looking. So I wouldn't really super recommend any of those powders. Out of all of them, I'd say the Catrice Loose Nude Illusion one is the best out of all of those. But I wouldn't say like you gotta run out and get it straight away. But I just if you were gonna buy it, I'd be like, sure. Why not? Okay, so moving on to bronzers. So I just mentioned this one, the Revlon Bronze Beauty Matte Powder, I think it's called. So I was just looking on Superdrug today to put the link to it when I uploaded my Get Ready With Me, but it's not on Superdrug anymore, it's disappeared. Tried to look on Boots, couldn't see it on there either. Like, they've got the blushes that have the same sort of packaging. They've got the blushes, but they don't have the bronzer. I think they may have just replaced it with their newer like illuminating bronzers that they brought out, which I do want to try. I did find it on Amazon though, so I will link that. But I did hit pan on it. I mean, I use it a fair amount, definitely, because I mean, I try to just use these products anyway. And I feel like this sort of more so works as like a contour shade. I tend to just sort of shove it through my cheekbones more. So like when it comes to bronzer, I tend to just kind of dust it all over, and I don't really do it in a precise way or anything, just in the general cheek area. But with this one, I try to sort of like sculpt it a little bit more, like that. And then sometimes I'll put a little bit down the side of my nose as well. So it's not like a proper contour, it's just sort of like a half-assed kind of contour that I do with it. And I think it works okay for that, it's not bad. Again, when I used it with the Gosh powder, I do feel like it goes patchy, but then I've used it with other powders and it's not gone patchy at all. So I think that is a powder thing. I don't think the product itself is actually patchy. It works alright, but again, it's not the ideal shade. You'll probably be able to tell from pale skin. It's just a little bit too reddish. It's not super red, but it's a little bit reddish. It's just a little bit dark. It's just not the ideal shade for pale skin. But we're blending, and I feel like if you do it in a more contoured sort of way, you can get it to work. But I don't know. It's not bad. It's passable. It's usable. But it's just not the ideal. It's just not the ideal bronzer for pale skin, in my opinion. So next one I've got is the Physicians Formula Butter Bronzer. This one's in light bronzer, which I think is the lightest one. And obviously loads of people rave about these Physicians Formula bronzers, and they smell amazing. I do enjoy that smell, definitely, but yeah, just expected a bit more from it, to be honest. I don't think the formula is that bad. Like, it works fine. It's not too harsh. It's not too pigmented. You can get it to blend out well, but it's the sort of thing where it's just like, don't put too much on. Yeah, I just was expecting the shade to be a little bit better for pale skin. It's okay, you can get away with it with blending, but I just feel like I found so many really good bronzers that work so well for pale skin. I just feel like I wouldn't put this up there with those, to be honest. Texture's really nice, it's very smooth, very buttery in texture, but I don't know, I just expected a bit more from it, but then at the same time I don't hate it. Like, I have put a little bit of it on today using Revlon and this one. It is fine. It's fine, it's adequate, but it's just not it's not the one that I would reach for. I feel like there's quite a lot of other bronzers that I'd reach for before I would reach for this one in my collection. Just a bit underwhelming because I was really hoping to love that, because I know so many people recommend it. And obviously we've only actually just recently got the Physicians Formula in the UK. The Catrice one, again, it's not the ideal shade for pale skin. It's quite similar to the Revlon. It's quite similar to the Physicians Formula, actually. I mean, if you put them side by side, I feel like they look quite similar. Maybe the Physicians Formula one's a tiny bit lighter. This one's just a little bit dark, a little bit reddish. Prefer a more neutral or yellowy sort of base to a bronzer, personally. Quite harsh and pigmented, but again, you can get it to blend out. It does blend out perfectly fine. But again, it's just, I don't know. I feel like this is probably my least favourite out of all of these. I feel like the Physicians Formula is probably the one I like the most, but only because the other two aren't that great. But then, I don't know, the Revlon one's not too bad either. I would say my least favourite is definitely the Catrice one. It's just a bit too dark, and it's just a bit too pigmented. Even though it is fine when you blend it, it definitely is, but I don't know. Yeah, none of those bronzers have really stood out to me as amazing, but again, I have found so many really good bronzers. It was about time that I found some ones that put a dent in my good streak of bronzers, so. Okay, so highlighter. So I've got the Nip+Fab Better Work highlighter palette. Comes in a couple different shades. I got the lighter one. That's what the shades look like. I did mention this in my Get Ready With Me, but this one up the top here, it's very glittery and it's just not very pigmented. It's just very like stiff in the pan. I don't really like that one, but these two at the bottom are not bad. They're decent in terms of pigmentation. I think they're actually quite nice, but they're just, I mean, they're not the most impressive highlighters I've found. I've found a lot more pigmented ones, but I think they're nice highlighters. I definitely, you know, I'm happy to put them on my face. I like them. I've not really got complaints about them. This shade is just a bit redundant. It doesn't really need to be in here, to be honest. This palette is very overpriced, but then the price always fluctuates because it goes on sale a lot. Like when I looked on Superdrug yesterday, I think it was £8. But then when I bought it, I think it was like £18, and it can go up to £20, so the pricing is just all weird. That's the thing, I feel like if this was £8, I wouldn't moan about the price, but it's the fact that when I bought it, it was like 18. I just think that was, I kind of wish I hadn't bought it, to be honest, considering how expensive that was. But then, like, if you can get it for cheaper, then I would say get it. But I would just say I wouldn't spend any more than a tenner on this. If you can't get it for cheap, I wouldn't bother. I like it. I think the two shades I pointed out are nice highlighters. They're decent. But again, I just think it's overpriced for what it is, to be honest. So, so the other two I've got the Physicians Formula Mineral Glow Pearls. I don't know. I think there might be this shade and then a bronzy one. I'm not sure. But this one is this colour. And I will say in the picture I saw online, it looked like it was sort of white, but it's definitely more sort of like a peachy, pinky sort of colour. I was expecting it to be lighter based on the image. And then I've also got the Catrice High Glow Mineral Highlighting Powder in 010 Light Infusion. I think I'd say the Catrice one is probably my favourite. I think this is really pretty. I feel like you get it and you think it's going to be quite natural. And it is, like, it doesn't look too, like, overly, like, it's not like super duper pigmented, but like it's definitely pigmented. Like it looks really nice on the skin. I think this is a sort of highlighter that's someone who likes something quite natural but then noticeable. Like it's not like a non-existent highlighter or anything, but then I feel like it meshes into the skin really nicely. It doesn't make you look super textured or anything. Like I do feel like sometimes the more pigmented highlighters will kind of emphasize your texture a bit more, whereas this one I don't feel like does that. It just looks quite soft on the skin. So for that reason I do actually really like this. The shade works perfectly fine for pale skin. I don't know how many colour options there is available of this. I assume they have some darker ones available too. I like this. This is a really nice highlighter, really natural. See, sometimes I do want a more pigmented highlighter that's just like really intense and like insane, but other times I do prefer something like this, so I am glad that I picked it up. It is a nice highlighter. I would recommend it. The Physicians Formula one, my issue with this is that I just have like a little bit of a cast. I do put it on and I feel like it doesn't just sort of mesh into my skin tone, like it's a bit of a cast to it on me. But again, if you had deeper skin than me, I'm sure it would work absolutely fine. Again, they have got a more bronzy one that I think would probably work on deep skin tones. This I feel like is meant for more sort of light to medium, I would say, but not fair like me. And again, it is quite pigmented. It's pretty nice. Again, I do feel like it's quite similar to the Catrice one in that it's quite like a soft sort of natural glow. It's not super like glittery and harsh and like texture emphasizing. It is more natural sort of highlighter, so it's nice. I feel like if this was a tiny bit lighter, I would really be raving about it and really like it, but it's just the fact that it's got a little bit of a cast in me that puts me off. But I think the formula is actually really nice. I do like the effect of it. I feel like if I sort of mesh it into my bronzer, I can sort of get away with the colour, but it's just like being strategic with how you apply it. Okay, so moving on to eyebrows, I tried 3 gels. So I tried the Catrice Brow Colorist Semi-Permanent Brow Mascara. This is in the shade, I don't know what the shade is, it doesn't say, but it's one of the darker brown ones. Then I got the Holika Wonder Drawing Brow Cara, and this is in the shade Dark Brown. And then I got the Max Factor Brow Revival Densifying Brow Mascara, and I think this is in Soft Brown. Yeah, 002 Soft Brown. When I last looked, there was only like 2 shades of this, so they definitely need more shades. So the Holika one I really didn't like, and I did try it a lot, but it just always looks really harsh and really blocky on me. And also the colour is just like a bit red, a bit warm. It just does not suit my natural brow hair very well. Like I'd prefer something a bit more ashy, a bit more cool, sort of just softer brown colour, whereas this is just like a very heavy like chocolatey but reddy sort of warm brow colour, and it just looks really like they just look like really fake, thick, blocky brows. When I use this, I just can't get a natural brow with it, so I don't really like it. And the wand is a bit, it's not too bad, but I would prefer it to be a bit thinner, a bit smaller, and also it has a lot of excess as well, which is a pet peeve of mine when brow gels have lots of excess, and it definitely does that. So I wouldn't really recommend this personally, but I know some people like pigmented eyebrow gels, but for me I just don't. The Catrice one, I do quite like this. It does have a little bit of excess, but not a lot, a whole lot less than the Holika one. It's just like a tiny bit that you have to wipe off. So I would prefer it to have a little bit less excess, but it's not a massive issue because it's only a small amount. Again, the shade isn't 100% perfect. I would prefer it to be a tiny bit cooler. It's a bit more rich in colour. And again, the wand isn't perfect. I would prefer it to be just a slightly shorter, but the thinness is really good. And I do feel like it gives you a very natural brow, doesn't splodge. It's nice. I really like the formula of it. I like what it does to the brows. It's not too much, and I am pretty picky when it comes to brow gels. I just feel like I just want something very natural that isn't going to splodge everywhere, that isn't difficult to apply, that I'm not going to make a huge mess of my brows with. And that doesn't happen with this one, so I do actually quite like this one a lot. Just wish the shade was a little bit better, and I wish the wand was a little bit different, but only like minor sort of complaints with it. So it doesn't quite rival my absolute favourites, which is the Benefit Give Me Brow and the e.l.f. Wow Brow, but it's pretty close. It's a decent brow gel and I quite like it. I think the Matte Factor one's probably my favourite. I feel like this one gives the most natural, fluffy, sort of feathery brow, and I think I've used most of this because it doesn't feel like a lot's coming out of it. And I have got this one on my brows today. The colour works really well for me, as you can see. It just is very like close to my actual brow hairs. It just looks very soft and it's very ashy, so the colour works absolutely perfectly for me. It just gives you such a natural brow, fluffy, feathered out brow. The only complaint I have with this, and this is just going to depend on personal preferences, is the way it sort of dries down. It's like a hairspray. It's a bit crispy, which I didn't like at first, but then I feel like once you kind of get used to it, it's not an issue, but it might feel a bit weird like the first few times you use it. But like once you get used to it, and I feel like if you put less on, it doesn't feel quite as bad. If you're going to put like really heavy layers of it on, it's going to get more crispy. If you just like really natural feathery brows, I think this is the perfect product. I would have to say I am really impressed with this. I think this is my favourite brow gel I've tried for January and February. Again, maybe not quite as good as my e.l.f. and my Benefit, purely just because they don't have the hairspray texture. That's literally the only reason, but in terms of the actual performance of the brow gel, I think it is kind of on that level with my favourites. It's just the hairsprayiness that's the only questionable thing about it, really. Wand is a pretty decent size. It's very small, very diddly. Maybe I wish it was a tiny bit thinner. It's the only kind of criticism I can think of. I brought two micro brow pencils. So I've got the MUA Brow Define Micro Precision brow pencil. This I think is in the shade dark brown. And I got the Catrice Cinematic Ultra Precise Brow Pencil, and this is in the shade 215 Brown / Marron. Did not really like the Catrice one. Literally every time I used this, it snapped to the point where I only used it maybe like 5 times or so, and like I can't use it anymore because there's literally this tiny little knob left, and it's just not usable. I really did not want to use a brow pencil that's going to snap every time that I use it. And it wasn't like I had it pushed up really high, because I know it like things snap easier if you push them up really high, but I just pushed it up like the normal amount that I would. And that's the thing, I obviously did it with the MUA one and didn't have that problem. So it's just way too stiff. It always just looked really sort of harsh on the brows. It just didn't look natural. It just didn't blend in with the brow gel very well. Yeah, I would skip on this. I just don't think it's a good micro brow pencil, and there are so many really good ones out there, and that's just not one of them. The MUA one I quite like. I do have a few little kind of complaints, but I think considering it's like £2.50, £3, I think, I really think I think it's very good for that price. I feel like this one definitely is way more natural looking, way less stiff, way softer than the Catrice one, but at the same time I have found softer ones. One that comes to mind is a really good one is the W7. I think it's called the Stroke of Genius micro brow pencil, because that is like literally the softest formula I found, and it just looks so like natural. It doesn't quite reach that level of good, but it's pretty good. Like I've obviously used it today to define my arch, and I feel like it just works. It's a good micro brow pencil. Like, I would say give it a go for considering how cheap it is. It's pretty good. It's just the only kind of thing I could say is I've found slightly better ones. Just my personal preference, I want a soft micro brow pencil. Maybe other people do want it to be a bit more stiff. I don't know. I just prefer it less pigmented and softer personally, but I don't know. Maybe some people don't like it that way. So I'll talk about kohl eyeliners now. So I tried 3. I tried 2 from Catrice. So I got the Inside Eye Kohl Kajal, which is like a retractable one. And also the 18-hour Colour and Contour Eye Pencil, which is in the shade Me, My Black and Eye. This one does come in different shades. And again, it is a retractable one. They're basically like kind of the same thing, not gonna lie. I did film a little bit of a wear test with all of these eyeliners. I basically just did it after I did the foundation ones. These two wear basically the same. I think the Colour and Contour one maybe was a tiny bit less wear and tear with, but like a very minuscule amount. Very pigmented, they glide on like an absolute dream. I think when you first put them on, there's nothing I can really fault about them. They're pigmented, they don't feel uncomfortable to apply, so they're pretty good. The only sort of complaints I have about them is they could wear a bit better. They do go a little bit patchy by the end of the day. I will put the clips in a sec. And they do smudge my inner corner quite a bit. I found way worse ones. I found a lot better ones when it comes to smudging in the inner corner. It's just a problem that I have with like almost all eyeliners. Like, I've never found an eyeliner that doesn't do it. Like, even my favourite ones do it. It's just like, to what extent do they do it? So this is what the Catrice Colour and Contour eyeliner looks like in the waterline after it's been on for 8 hours. I feel like you can kind of see that it has sort of faded and got a bit patchy, but like it's still definitely in there. Like, it's a present. There is some like inner corner smudging. It's not the best for the inner corner, but it's also not the worst. So it wears okay, but I feel like, as you can see, it just has started to go quite patchy. It's not the longest wearing eyeliner, to be honest, but it's not bad, it's not terrible. Okay, so this is how the Inside Eye Kohl Kajal by Catrice wears. I think, as you can see, it has started to, like, you know, fade quite a bit, go a bit patchy, like the Colour and Contour one. I feel like this one maybe looks a tiny bit worse than the Colour and Contour one, but it's really not that different, to be honest. It has smudged my inner corner, but I have wiped it a little bit. I think they're pretty similar, to be honest, both of the Catrice ones. Maybe the Colour and Contour one wears a tiny bit better, but really not by much at all. I kind of think they're basically the same product, really. The formula feels the same, the texture's basically the same, the pigment is basically the same. You don't need to buy both of them, though. It's kind of unnecessary that I bought both of these, because they're almost exactly the same thing. The Gosh one I don't like as much. Again, it's just not super pigmented. Like, it is pigmented, like it shows up. You can tell there's a black eyeliner in my waterline, but I've just found way more like dramatic ones, to be honest. And softer, creamier formulas, definitely. It's not the smoothest, and it doesn't wear the best either. Quite a bit smudging in the corner. I felt like it wore worse than the Catrice ones, just a lot of fading, a lot of patchiness. We'll put that clip in a sec. Yeah, I really don't rate this, and I was hoping that it'd be quite nice because I do like Gosh as a brand, but this eyeliner just didn't do it to me. Okay, so I've had the Gosh eyeliner in my eyes today. I feel like this one is probably the worst when it comes to wear. I feel like it has faded a lot, and yeah, I mean, there's still a little bit of it there, but I feel like this one has come off quite a lot. So I feel like this one is probably the worst wearing one out of them. It's not got the longest longevity. It's smudged in my inner corners, as you can see. I don't feel like it's done it any worse than the 2 Catrice ones, to be honest. I feel like it's done it about the same. It's not the worst for inner corner smudging, but it's far from the best either. It's definitely done it. So we'll talk about mascaras next. So I tried 4. 3 of these are from Catrice. Got the Catrice Iconista Lash Millionizer Volume Mascara. It's got the gold packaging. I got the Catrice Glam & Doll Boost Lash Growth Volume Mascara, which I think the image of this online looks different to the actual bottle, because I think it looks sort of purple in the picture, and then this is definitely grey, so I don't know. And then I got the Glam & Doll Lash Colorist Semi-Permanent Volume Mascara. This one I did not like. Just did not give me any volume, any thickness. It gets a little bit of length, I'll say that, So, I mean, if you just want something maybe to tint your eyelashes, because I think that's what this does, it's supposed to tint your lashes, then that's fine. But in terms of like an actual mascara, it just doesn't cut it for me. It's just, I just don't rate it. I need it to have thickness, volume, length, everything, and it just doesn't. It's just not good at that. I don't like it. The other two Catrice mascaras, I think they're really good in terms of what they do for my eyelashes. I've got the Lash Millionizer one on today, and I think, as you can see, it's thickening, it's volumizing. I do feel like this one is a little bit drier, like it dries up a bit faster. So I do feel like you have to kind of work with it a lot more. Like it's not a quick sort of lash thing. This one definitely stays wetter for longer. Super volumizing, lengthening, thickening, but then they look sort of wispy at the same time. I think this one's a little bit more wispy sort of looking. This one's a bit thicker, I feel. However, my complaint with these, it's really irritating because I love what they do for my lashes, but they're very smudgy and they transfer. So I'll start off like this, and then sometimes I'll just come back at the end of the day and I'll notice that like there'll be little smudges of mascara on the top of my lashes. That would happen quite often with both of these, and it's just something that really annoys me. And then also, this tends to happen every time I apply mascara, that I'll just get like it smudging like a bit on my eyelid or on my lower lash line. And what I normally do is wait for it to dry, wipe it off with a cotton bud. However, when I do that with this, it can just smudge it further and just make a mess. It just does not remove easily. It's just, they're both just very smudgy mascaras, very transferring mascaras, and it's really irritating because I like everything else about them, but they just had to ruin it by being smudgy, didn't they? The other one that I tried was the Revlon Ultimate All-in-One Mascara, and this one doesn't smudge at all, which is really great, which just goes to show it's not a universal mascara thing. There are mascaras that don't do it on me, and there are mascaras that do it on me. So my Revlon one's definitely my favourite out of all of these, for the reason that it doesn't smudge. I can remove it once it's dried if I've smudged mascara while I'm applying it, and it just comes off. I don't ever find it transferring at the end of the day. It's also incredibly thickening, incredibly volumizing. I don't feel like it's the most lengthening, and it can look a tiny bit clumpy, so maybe not everyone would like it, but I personally really like it because I'm all about thickness and volume when it comes to lashes. So I actually think this is a really good mascara, and I wasn't sure if I wanted to buy it because, I don't know, I just heard mixed things about it when I was trying to look up reviews. But I am really glad that I did decide to pick it up because it's really good and it doesn't smudge, it doesn't transfer, and it just gives a really great volume, so can't really go wrong with that, to be honest. I would definitely recommend giving this one a go if you like thick, voluminous lashes. Okay, so moving on to eyeshadow palettes. I have 4 eyeshadow palettes. We've got the Catrice Crystallized Rose Quartz eyeshadow palette. It looks like this. I've got the MAC Flamboyant eyeshadow palette. My sister got me this for Christmas, so I just included that as a January thing, you know, because it was literally right at the end of December. It's just a very warm toned palette. I got the Revolution Carmi Make Magic shadow palette from Revolution, which looks like this. And then this was also a Christmas present from my sister. This is the BH Cosmetics Zodiac Love Signs eyeshadow palette, which looks like this. Which one should I talk about first? I'll talk about the BH Cosmetics one first because I've got this one on my eyelids today, and I'm actually pretty happy with how this turned out. Try to just sort of like kind of blow it out a bit, which I sometimes struggle to do with my limited eyeshadow skills. And then I've got some of the pinky sort of shimmers on the lid, and then just like warm tones. And you know what? I think it's decent. Not a bad eyeshadow look. So let's talk about some of the other eyeshadow looks I got with this. So I did do a couple looks that I didn't get pictures of. I think they were just quite like basic looks that I did for when I like went out and stuff. So the first look I did that I got pictures of was this sort of pinky look. I think it turned out pretty well. You can kind of see the pigmentation, the shimmers. I think everything performed absolutely fine. It was this sort of matte shade that I used for the crease, and then as you can see there's a lot of pinky purple shimmers in there, and they all performed super well, no complaints. Yeah, then I tried to do this sort of blue look. I think this is the only look that I had any issues with, and it was just with the matte blues, just kind of blending I had a little bit of difficulty with. I think you might be able to see from the pictures it's not the most seamless blend between the dark blue and the light blue, so I think it was more the darker blue that was causing the problems, not the light blue. But everything was really pigmented, all the mattes and shimmers that I used there. It was just that sort of minor blending issue that I had with that one. But that's the only time I ever had any blending issues. Pretty sure it would have been this matte shade that I used at that. I think the light blue one was fine, very pigmented. I think it was just blending this darker one that I had the issues with. But that was literally the only shade I had issues with. The blue shimmers were absolutely beautiful. And then yesterday I tried to do this sort of like really cool toned look, and I think again all of the shades performed super well. I find it really hard to get a decent picture of this one. Sometimes I'll just do eyeshadow and it'll look really good in person, but you cannot get a nice picture of it. And then sometimes it's the other way around, like it looks really good in photos but then in person it looks really bad. This is one that I thought looked good in person but I couldn't necessarily get the best pictures of. I thought that all the shades blended really well. The shimmer that I used was the Libra one, and oh my god, it was absolutely stunning. I also think the matte white in this is really good, very pigmented. I do love it when a palette just has a nice matte white that you can use, because not all of them do, and I just feel like they all should. That was as much as I was able to play around with it, but I think overall this is a really good palette, and I'm very glad that my sister bought it for me. Colour scheme's really nice. I like that you've got like even balance of mattes and shimmers. I think the shimmers are so pigmented, so stunning, beautiful. The mattes work really well. Again, the only one I had issues with was that darker sort of bluey greedy one, but the rest of them were absolutely great. I think the neutrals are amazing, as you can kind of tell with the neutrals that I used today for the crease. I think this may become a favourite, you know. I think this is a really good quality palette, and I feel like BH Cosmetics is maybe a brand that doesn't get a lot of recognition, and I know they have so many eyeshadow palettes as well, and I would quite like to maybe try some more of them. Not if I need any more eyeshadow. Yes, could not recommend this enough. I'm not entirely sure how much it is because again, as I said, I got it as a present. So I talk about the Carmi Make Magic one, which I did use in that Get Ready With Me, so that was obviously one of the looks that I did with it. It was just sort of like a ready purpley sort of grungy sort of look that I went for. And I think I did have maybe a little bit of issues with the mattes blending, but I thought all the shimmers were really nice. So this does have like a row of sort of foiled shades at the top, and I do think they are super pretty. I do really like all the foiled shades in this. I think they're super pigmented, and it's just nice to have a sort of different sort of texture from other eyeshadows, and some of them are just, I mean, like look at that. Is that not just, oh, I mean, they are absolutely stunning. Like these foiled shades I can't really fault them. They're just stunning. Maybe this rose goldy one here isn't quite as pigmented as the rest of them. I did notice that because one of the gold looks that I did use that in the inner corner and it didn't wow me, but the other foiled shades, I feel like they're just so good. Really like them. And like, I think because they're creamy, I feel like because they're more creamy and not just sort of like a normal eyeshadow formula, you might think that they're difficult to work with, but I didn't feel like they were difficult to work with. I feel like I could blend them fine. Okay, so I'll go through some of the looks that I got of it. So first one was this. I do remember doing like a pink look, because I remember I went to the cinemas that day and I was like in a rush, so I didn't have time to take pictures, but I did some sort of like pastel sort of pinky look with it. I think I used like this shade called Bless like as the main sort of thing. I don't really remember. I think it turned out well. I'm not 100% sure. Next one I actually got pictures of with this sort of greeny, bluey, gold look, and by the looks of it I think everything seemed to blend well. The shimmers were pretty. Yeah, I think this look turned out pretty well. Not really much to complain about in terms of that one. And then I did this sort of gold one, and I have to say the foiled gold shade Moneymaker. This one here is absolutely beautiful, so pigmented, so stunning. I just loved it. I did actually layer the shade called Honesty, which is just a kind of regular gold one, and that one is pretty decent. I do just feel like the regular shimmers, they're not bad. Like I think the Love Yourself one that I used in the Get Ready With Me, that one was actually really nice and pigmented, but some of them I feel like they're okay, but they're just not the most pigmented shimmers I've ever found. I feel like the foiled shades is where the magic is at with this palette. So like it is a pigmented gold, I just feel like I found sort of more pigmented shimmers, but they're not bad, they're decent. Not saying they're awful shimmers, they're just, I've found slightly more impressive ones. The thing with the mattes is, I think they're okay. Like with this look, I mean, they all blended fine, but they're very sort of buildable mattes. They're not the most pigmented mattes. I feel like there are better formulated mattes out there, even from Revolution itself. So I don't know. The mattes aren't the most impressive to me, in my opinion. But like they're workable, you can work with them and get like decent looks. But like for example the BH Cosmetic mattes I feel like perform better than these sort of neutral mattes in this palette. So this palette I think is good. It may be a little bit inconsistent. Like as I said, I do feel like this sort of part of it like is a bit inconsistent. Like some shades are quite nice in this bit. Some are a bit meh. Well, they're not bad, they're just very buildable. Like, I feel like if you're a bit of an eyeshadow snob, you might not necessarily rate them, but I do think this top row of foils, minus maybe the rose gold one, these 5, is that 5? I can't count. Absolutely stunning. I love them. I don't know, if there was a way for me to like depot these, because I have got a just sort of blank, I have got one of those magnetic palettes just sort of blank at the moment. So there was a way I could like depot some of the foiled shades and put them in there. I would definitely do that. So I feel like overall it's not like mind-blowing, this palette. It's just, well, I feel like the top row is mind-blowing, but the bottom part is just a bit average, not bad, workable. I got some looks as you can tell from the photos, but okay, so I'll talk about the matte palette. So I first used this in a pic from my kit, I think. Which I think I filmed in January. Again, this was a present from my sister for Christmas, and it's just very like sort of everyday, basic. I can see a lot of people absolutely adoring this colour scheme, and I do really like it because when it comes to like neutrals and colourful stuff, I like both. I like everything, you know. I'm completely versatile when it comes to eyeshadows. I like rainbow stuff. I like neutral stuff. I like it all. Just give it all to me. Okay, so again, I'll just go through some looks that I got with this. Okay, so I did this quite bold look with it. I had this Fenty Beauty glitter thing with this look. In terms of this, I feel like this is a nice glitter, but I don't feel like it's any like better quality than like a Collection Glam Crystals thing. That's my kind of thoughts on it. It's good, but I feel like you can get better for cheaper. Yeah, I did manage to get some quite nice pictures of this one. Again, I just feel like all of the shades work really well. The mattes blend really well. They're pigmented. It's just an overall really good palette. There's not much I can fault. I mean, again, the only sort of thing I can say is it's a very specific colour scheme, and you know there's only a certain amount you can do with it really, but I mean you wouldn't get it if you didn't want those colours, and you can, you know, you can make pretty nice looks with it, that's for sure. In my March first impressions video I did actually use this palette, so I'll put the screenshot of that video. I just did a very sort of smoky, grungy sort of look. And again, it was fine. You can do a smoky eye with it, that's for sure. Then I just did this very sort of basic, kind of simple look, which, again, I found it really difficult to get nice pictures of this. Sometimes this happens, they will look fine in person, but I cannot get nice pictures of it. But I just did this very sort of simple, sort of glam look with it. I did find, you might be able to see this in one of the pictures, I did get a little bit of, this is a problem that I had with the Morphe palette that I tried in, I think it was December, where I'd get little dots sometimes and I'd be blending it for the crease. But it only happened on one eye, which is really weird, so I don't know what that's about. Is it something to do with my brushes? I have no idea, because I've only ever had that with the Morphe palette, and then this, but only on one eye for some reason, so I have no idea what those dots are about, but it never happens otherwise. And I think that was it. So yeah, it's a nice palette. I like it. I'm happy that my sister bought it for me. If you are into that sort of warm, sort of everyday sort of shade colour scheme, I think it's a nice palette and I would definitely recommend it. It's MAC, so I'm not entirely sure what the price is. I imagine it wouldn't be as expensive as something very high-end, but it's probably not going to be cheap either. And then the last palette, the Catrice one, the Crystallized Rose Quartz. The first look I managed to do, this was, I don't even know how to feel about this look. To be honest, it's a bit basic really. I feel like the cut crease isn't high enough, you get what I mean? Everything performed absolutely fine though when I did this look. It's a bit bland really, isn't it? And then I did this look with it, which is quite similar to the other look. That's my thing. I feel like you're a bit limited of what you can do with this palette. But yeah, I think that this turned out a bit better than the first one did. I feel like there's a little bit more structure to it. But yeah, the shimmers, the mattes, all works perfectly well with that look. Then I tried to do something a bit different with it, but yeah, again, I could not get nice pictures of this. It looked okay in person, it did not look nice in pictures. I feel Even the glitter is just like not, it looks a bit patchy, doesn't it? I don't know, like, look, trust me when I say this looked a bit better in person than it did in the pictures. But yeah, I just really tried to do something a bit different with it. In terms of quality, this is a really nice palette and it's super duper affordable and cheap, but only get it if you're interested in this colour scheme. It is really good quality though. The shimmers are absolutely stunning. The mattes work perfectly well. I mean, look at the shimmers. I mean, speaks for themselves, that they're super pigmented and incredibly affordable, so you know, that was just with one swatch. They're really good, and I think like the bright purple works really well. I think purples can be a bit difficult to formulate. I've found a lot of patchy purples recently, but it works really well. You can blend it for the crease, you can put it on a cut crease, you can do whatever you want with it. Same with the sort of light pinky one, that's really nice too. I think this is a really good quality palette, but again, it's just very, there's not a lot you can do with it. I feel like once you've done like a couple looks, you're kind of at the point where you're like, I don't know what else to do with this. But if you like the colour scheme, I would 100% recommend it. It's a very good quality eyeshadow palette. So I did mention that Fenty Beauty glitter, but my sister got me the like trophy wife set for Christmas, so I got the highlight as well, but this is obviously too dark for me to use as a highlight, but I've used it as eyeshadow. Sometimes I do just like kind of lightly tap a bit of it over my bronzer, and that looks quite nice. I'm just going to try that out now. So yeah, I think that actually works when you just sort of like tap it over your bronzer. It's very glittery, it's an incredibly glittery highlighter, but it's super pigmented. It does work like that actually. Like I don't feel like it looks weird just tapping it over my bronzer. Can't really get much use out of it as a highlighter, but it's a nice eyeshadow and it's a nice bronzer topper, so there you go. Gloss Bomb, I knew I'd like this because I've tried the original Gloss Bomb, the one that's in this colour. And again, the gold isn't too strong with this, so it's sort of, so I did just tap a little bit of it over my lipstick, and my lips obviously don't look gold. So you can kind of get it to not look super duper gold. You just kind of like dab it on and then sort of blend it in with your finger. It kind of gives you that glossy effect, but it doesn't look like you literally smeared gold on your lips or anything. And then again, I got the gold lipstick as well, which again, I mean, I'm not going to use this every day obviously because it's gold. Again, it's not super duper pigmented and like intimidatingly gold, and I think it looks nice topped over things actually. Let's put a bit on now. And then the other two lip products, I got two of the L'Oreal Colour Reach Ultra Mattes. I used the shade No Prejudice in that Get Ready With Me. This is like a really dark, reddy, vampy shade, and it does look really nice if you like vampy shades. It's very pigmented, very creamy formula. However, could be more matte in my opinion. Considering they're called Ultra Mattes, you would have thought that it would be ultra matte. I just feel like they're sort of semi-matte in my opinion. Like they're not like super slippy and slidey. Like there's some matteness to it, but I feel like they could be more matte in my opinion, and I personally do like I personally like my bullet lipsticks to be more matte in formula. I don't feel like these last particularly well. Obviously I've used the shade, I think it's No Shame. I think the writing has sort of worn off this, so I can't tell. I think it's No Shame. Obviously this is like more of a nude, which I've used this a lot. I put it in my work bag, so I've worn it to work a lot. I do just find that my more matte bullet lips last a bit longer than this one does. That's the thing with my matte ones. I expect them to come off when I've eaten, but with this one I find that it will come off before I've eaten, if you know what I mean. So yeah, it could last a bit better in my opinion. I just wish they were more matte. That's my one complaint with these, but they're not bad. They're very creamy if you like that sort of thing. I tried two setting sprays. The NYX Dewy Finish Long Lasting Setting Spray, this one here. And then the Catrice Prime and Fine Multi-Talent Fixing Spray, which I think this is empty. Like, I can't see any product in there. That's like the last of it. Let's put it on now. See, now that it's at the bottom, it's just spitting on my face. Like, there's literally like, oh, why did I do that? I just ruined my makeup now. Yeah, now it's at the bottom, it literally just spits on your face. So it's basically done. I can't really use it anymore. The NYX one has got quite a bit left in it though. I did use this a lot, hence why it's run out faster. But again, at the same time, I just don't feel like it is quite small. It's not going to last a long time. I liked it. I think it makes your highlighter pop a bit more. Does it really make your makeup last longer? I don't really think so. Even my Urban Decay All-Nighter one that everyone raves about for making your makeup last longer, I personally don't notice any difference with it. I don't really buy setting sprays to make my makeup last longer. I just like it to, you know, kind of bring a bit of like shine, moisture back into my face. Sometimes it like takes away the powderiness of your base products. I don't want it to make me look oily, but I've never found one that has made me look oily, but just give you a bit of dew back into the skin, you know. I felt like this one did give you like a little bit of a dew. It wasn't anything amazing. The NYX one, I did find that the NYX one could leave little dots on your face. Normally you'd be able to tap it in with a sponge and it'd be fine, but that is just a little bit of an annoying thing when a setting spray just kind of leaves little dots on your face. It's very refreshing. Makes your highlighter pop a little bit more. I don't feel like it's overly dewy though. I'm still holding out for a setting spray that's just gonna make me look super dewy. It does it a little bit, but I just want a bit more, you know. I think the new Revolution one, that's going to be in my next month's review. The Glass Glow Fix, I think, is a bit dewier than both of those two. Okay, so that is all of my thoughts and opinions after using all of these products from January to March, because it's now April 1st when I'm filming this. So I'm now going to move on to all of the products that I tried in March. I'll do a March review. I'm not actually going to buy any products for April. Like, that's nothing to do with the COVID-19 thing. I just generally didn't want to buy makeup in April anyway. I wanted to have a break month. It just happened to coincide with the worldwide crisis. But anyway, that is my thoughts on a bunch of random ass products that no one probably is interested in, but whatever. So thank you for watching this video. I'll see you in my next one. Goodbye.